habits and how our habits impact our blood sugars, our diabetes management, our overall health. So if you think of habit, the word habit, what does that mean? It is basically behaviors that we do on autopilot because we are so used to doing them. That's what our habits are. They're things we do on autopilot. They're things that we don't think about. There are behaviors that we probably don't even really think about if we don't have the awareness for it. So those habits are 100% going to impact our diabetes management. They're how we move through every single day, and the things that we are automatically doing, probably not even thinking about, but are having an impact on our blood sugars. And so those are the things that we can look at and make tiny adjustments that can have big impact on our blood sugars. The beautiful thing about habits is that they are simple, usually. They're just the things that we do every day. And so the tiny tweaks that we make can actually have huge results in our diabetes management and in our blood sugars. So the first step is to start bringing some awareness in to how we are doing things. How are we getting up in the morning? How are we moving through our morning to lunch? What does lunch look like? How do we move through our afternoon? What does our mental health look like? Are we taking care of ourselves? Literally paying attention to every moment of our lives and finding the areas where we can make tiny tweaks that can have big results in our diabetes management. But before we start getting into changing habits, we need to talk about how our habits form and where they come from. So a lot of our habits are actually based on who we think we are. So if we think we're not a healthy person, then our habits are going to reflect that. If we think that we're never on time, our habits are going to reflect that. So in order to actually change our habits, we need to start by changing how we think about ourselves and kind of changing our identity. So we're never going to get to sustainable change in our habits unless we change how we feel about ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and who we are as a person. So that's where you want to start, and you want to start paying attention to the thoughts that you're having about yourself. Are you telling yourself, I'm not healthy, I can't have stable blood sugars, I'm just not that type of person, I'm not a runner, I'm not someone who exercises, I'm not a yogi? Are these kinds of thoughts going on in your head? And if so, that's okay, but we just need to bring awareness to them and start to transition them into thoughts that are going to help you manage your blood sugars better. So we're going to start to shift into, I am someone who can manage my diabetes. I am someone who is a healthy person. I am a yogi. It all starts with the I am. It all starts with what you're telling yourself. And if you notice these thoughts coming up, it really is as simple as just making a shift, choosing a different thought. If you're, at dinner, what would a healthy person order? You could ask yourself that and then order that. And the more times you do it, the more evidence starts to build up in your mind, and the easier it is to accept, I am a healthy person. I am someone who can manage my diabetes. I am someone who can live with stable blood sugars. The more evidence you build by the decisions that you make, the easier it's going to be to believe these thoughts about yourself, and that's when the habits start to change. Do you see that? Identity, habits. We got to start with the identity, and then we can move into better habits. So pay attention to your identity. What do you think about yourself now? And what are the things that you want? Are you someone who wants stable blood sugars? So yeah, that's the result. But what kind of person is the person who can have those stable blood sugars? Probably someone who is consistent. Probably someone who practices self-care. So start with those things. What type of person is someone who's healthy? What type of person is someone who is a yogi? Maybe that's what you want because you're here too, and that's what we do here. So it's building evidence. It's taking time to think, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of things does that person do? And then starting to do those things. As the evidence builds up, you will become that person, and your habits will start to change over here. And when the habits change, you really will see results with your blood sugars. So when it gets down to it, it really is all about mindset and how you're thinking about yourself. And when you start to have these thoughts come up, like, I'm just not someone who can have stable blood sugars, I'm just not someone who's good at diabetes, I'm just not a yogi, I'm not someone who works out, you need to pivot the thought. Pivot the thought and say, I am someone who can do this. I am someone who works out. I am someone who practices yoga. And as you start to make those shifts and you show up for those shifts, you start taking action as someone who is a yogi, as someone who is balancing their blood sugars well. You'll start to have evidence, you'll start to see results, and the habits will start to form, and it will become second nature. And then you'll just easily have the stable blood sugars. You'll easily show up on your yoga mat. You'll easily get to the gym. But it takes work in the beginning, because you have to go from the place that you're already in, and you have to shift to a new way of thinking. And you have to catch every thought, and it is doing the work. It takes work in the beginning. It's not easy. But once you get over the hump and you are thinking these thoughts more consistently, it just gets easier and easier, because they become habits. And it becomes second nature. It becomes automatic. And then you're easily showing up on your yoga mat. You're easily having the balanced blood sugars. So when it comes down to it, the goal is actually not to have balanced blood sugars. The goal is to become someone who's empowered in their health. You want to become something. You want to think about your identity. What are you trying to become? And then those results that you're seeking, they're going to come naturally. They're going to flow when you become the person that you want. I kind of just let that all flow through me. I would love to hear some comments. Let's start some conversations about this. Where are you at now? What limiting beliefs are you what things do you have going on that you feel about yourself? And let's workshop it. So maybe in the Facebook group or the comments below, say the results that you're looking for. And let's talk about, well, what kind of person gets those results? And then what kind of things does that person do? And so let's work that way to get the results that you want, to build the habits that you want, so that this stuff just flows to you, so that you can just move and flow. So let's create the conversation. Let's get talking about this. I can't wait to chat with you either here in the group or in the Facebook group. Let's get the conversation going. I think this is the root of change, though. We have to become what we want. Let's stop focusing on outcome. Let's stop focusing on goals. Let's focus on the person that we want to become. What does that person do? How do we start to do those things, become this person, and let the habits and the results flow to us freely?